Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 out of O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here on this Monday morning in your nation's capital. How you doing? Let's roll here. We got a lot to get to, and I don't want to waste too much time. 8:05, Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch. I'm Larry O'Connor. She's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Julie, it's Joe diGenova.
I know.
So can I just get right to it?
Let's do it.
Joe, good morning.
Good morning.
How's everything? How's the weather?
That's beautiful.
All right, good. So Fani Willis. She claimed she didn't have a relationship with this guy until after she had already hired him. Now we see that in the year before she hired him, they had 2,000 voice calls, 10,000 text messages, and 35 times Nathan Wade's phone was in the vicinity of Fani Willis's home. Some speculating that's why she ended up moving out of her father's home, or her old home, I should say, to a undisclosed location. They claimed it was because people were surrounding the house and screaming racial epithets, which, of course, there's no evidence of
video.
or reporting of it. Joe, is she done? Is there any way this judge allows her to stay on this case?
There's no way he should allow her to stay on this case or Mr. Wade. The appearance of a conflict of interest is now beyond any question. So the rules and the laws have been violated. There is, of course, an actual conflict of interest based on the available evidence, the testimony, and especially her testimony and that of Mr. Wade, which was unbelievable testimony. Whether you disbelieve their description of when their relationship started, or whether you disbelieve their explanation of how everything between them was dealt with in cash, like a couple of mafia dons dealing in cash only. So the bottom line is, if Judge McAfee has any spine, after hearing what he needs to hear this week, he needs to sit down and write an opinion which disqualifies both of them. And by doing that, he disqualifies the entire office of Fani Willis, which means the case would then have to go to the state attorney general, who would have to assign it to another prosecutor's office, who would then make an independent judgment about whether or not the case is worthy of going forward. So what will happen in this case is obvious. What should happen, whether or not it will happen, we'll just wait and see. And it all depends on Judge McAfee, whether or not who is up for a retention election in 4 months, whether or not he has the strength of character to do what needs to be done.
What will happen ultimately to Wade and Willis? Will they be disbarred? Will they be fined?
Or criminal charges for perjury?
Yeah. Do you see any of that? I know we always feel like nothing ever happens, but do you think that if this goes on, especially if she testifies again and further damages herself, do you think that this could result in a disbarment again or criminal charges?
Well, I don't have a lot of confidence in most bars anymore, most state courts and some federal courts. I've lost a lot of confidence over the last year based on the behavior and conduct of judges all over the country when it involves Trump. Very definitely, they should be the subject of disciplinary hearings in the Georgia bar and the county bar, or whatever type of bar there is locally. There's no doubt that once they are disqualified, which they should be, there should be proceedings in the local bar and the state bar. Whether or not that will happen remains to be seen. You know, the judges have the authority to recommend bar action. One of the things Judge McAfee can do is recommend bar proceedings against both Wade and Willis. If he doesn't do that, that means he hasn't done his job.
You want to make a prediction?
He's going to disqualify them because otherwise his judicial career is over.
All right. And the only reason why he wouldn't do that is because he knows that he's going to get a torrent of criticism and be called racist, and maybe, he is up for election, right? These are elected positions, the judges in Fulton County.
Well, you have to live where you live. He's going to be in that courthouse. And, he doesn't seem like a dishonest person. He seems like a weak person in many ways. And he must know that history will not treat him kindly. He can't worry about this other stuff, about the phony calls of racism. I think that the proceedings, since they've been televised, which was a gift shows that it's not he that's being racist, but it's Fannie Willis.
Yeah.
That her tirades and between I can't figure out whether it's her or her father who's been the most outrageous in what they've said. At least in the case of Wade, he sat there and pretended to be meek and humble, which of course was in itself a false portrayal of himself.
By the way, over the weekend at the CPAC conference, Congressman Jim Jordan, chair of the Judiciary Committee, made this revelation.
But there's a whistleblower in her office who we have talked to, the committee staff. Yeah, and she, the whistleblower, I think she's like 4'11", but Fannie Willis had 7 police escort her out when she fired this lady, because this lady raised the concern that Miss Willis was not spending federal funds and not following the grant.
Now, I assume that that's the same whistleblower who spoke with the Washington Free Beacon at some point and revealed quite a bit. Could there be federal charges here at this point after a congressional inquiry? I know not with this attorney general, but does it sound like she could?
Well, that remains to be seen. I mean, getting over a burden of misspending federal funds. There's not a lot of law on this. There aren't a lot of cases on this because they're always politically charged, and the people have a lot of discretion and they can describe things. But it is another layer on her conduct, which is, she was in fact not competent to be the prosecutor of Fulton County, but she was elected, and that is when you have elected prosecutors, you get Soros's people because people don't spend money on prosecutorial elections, and it doesn't take much to overwhelm the other side. But this can be part of a bar proceeding, by the way. I doubt very much if Merrick Garland, who's got his hands full now covering up for the Biden family, would want to cover up for her. So just stay away from it.
Meanwhile, Joe, Alexander Smirnov, the informant that told FBI agents that Joe Biden had received a $5 million bribe from Burisma, he is now under arrest for lying to the FBI twice. What do you make of this? Because he was a reliable informant to the FBI right up until the moment, I guess, he started informing on Biden?
Yes. This is a David Weiss special. As you know, Weiss is the former U.S. Attorney for Delaware, still is the U.S. Attorney there. Now he's special counsel in the Hunter Biden matter. And he's the one who indicted Smirnov. Smirnov wasn't indicted by Maine Justice. He was indicted by David Weiss. Now, why was he indicted? He was indicted because he had made accusations about the president and his son, accusations which the FBI knew about for years and didn't do anything about. The question is, why after 10 years of work for the FBI as a confidential informant and hundreds of thousands of dollars in compensation, did the FBI and David Weiss decide that it was time to indict Smirnov? And the answer is, just like in all the other cases that David Weiss has handled, if something touches Joe Biden, it gets destroyed. And that is exactly why Smirnov was indicted. He got indicted because he made accusations against Joe Biden, which were credible. And it's also the reason that there is no Foreign Agents Registration Act case against Hunter Biden, because in order to bring that case, you'd have to bring in the president himself, Joe Biden. So there is no Farrah case. Listen, David Weiss, the man who indicted Smirnov, is a corrupt federal prosecutor. And if the Republicans are lucky enough to win the presidency in the House and the Senate, which is a very, very open question at this point, David Weiss should be summarily fired.
Joe, can you stick with us? There's more about Hunter Biden, including his expected testimony this week before the Oversight and Judiciary Committee, and a ton. And also, we just like the sound of your voice. You bring a little class to the proceedings. It's like having Tony Bennett or Dean Martin on the air. Can you stick with us?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Joe. I got chastised last week because I just assumed Joe was dead. Not by Joe, but by listeners. They said you should always be polite and ask. So, it's 7:15.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
On the next Vince Coglianese show, the big story that the media absolutely refuses to tell you about today, we've got it 3 o'clock here on WMAL.
Tones of Joe diGenova here as we continue this Monday morning in the nation's capital. Joe, so now you're going to love this one. After the arrest of Alexander Smirnov for allegedly lying to FBI twice about Joe Biden, even though, again, he's been a confidential informant for a decade in good standing. Here's the headline. Are you ready? You're going to love this. NBC News. Ex-U.S. spies warned the Hunter Biden scandal had Russian fingerprints. Now they feel vindicated. Because of the arrest of Smirnov. Can you unpack that for me? Because I'm having trouble connecting those dots.
Well, these 51 individuals who signed the famous statement alleging that the Hunter laptop had all the indicia of Russian disinformation, those 51 people are really, it's very difficult to describe them on FCC-regulated radio without delving into expletives.
I appreciate your discipline. Thank you.
My restraint. These 51 people plus are very, very sick individuals, but they are also people who were and still remain at the highest level of the American intelligence community. And it does underscore for everyone who cares about this why, if Trump is elected to a second term, his personnel decisions are going to be much more important than they were in his first term, because getting rid of massive numbers of people with security clearances, which should be taken away on Inauguration Day, the 51 people who signed that statement should have all their clearances revoked by the President of the United States. He doesn't need authority from Congress to do that. He can do that in a minute. But it does mean that the head of OMB, the head of the Office of Personnel Management, the Chief of Staff, the Attorney General, the White House Counsel, the Director of Central Intelligence, and the Director of National Intelligence have to be very carefully selected. These have to be people who are strong, who have vast government experience, and are not afraid of the bureaucracy. And they must move quickly and decisively within a matter of days to get this process going. Those people will continue to say unbelievably bad things like they just did, like this vindicates them.
Yes.
Hilarious. I mean, if it weren't so evil, it would be hilarious.
Well, which, Joe, by the way, stay in a mood for laughing, because here's the latest headline. Here's this morning's Politico 2 hours ago. The prospect of a second Trump presidency has the intelligence community on edge. Former top officials from Donald Trump's administration are warning he's likely to use a second term to overhaul the nation's spy agencies in a way that could lead to an unprecedented level of politicization of intelligence.
Oh, boy.
It goes on to say Politico talked to 18 former officials and analysts who worked in the Trump administration, including political appointees from both parties and career intelligence officers, some who still speak to the former president and his aides and had insight into conversations about his potential second term. All of these anonymous intelligence officials who love talking to Politico and sending these stories. And by the way, based on how the intelligence community has acted over the last 10, 15 years, they should be on edge, Joe. Shouldn't they?
Well, there's no doubt about that. But one of the things that should happen is there should be a major reorganization of the Justice Department, which should be the first thing that happens. Once that is accomplished, there needs to be a refocus on the intelligence community and its conduct over the last several years. And there needs to be a special grand jury, and there need to be subpoenas issued to all these people, and they all need to be able to get counsel and to decide whether or not they're going to testify. I believe that there is a major case to be made that the intelligence community conspired with people in and outside the government to deny Donald Trump his civil rights. And I've got a couple of candidates immediately in mind who used to work at the NSC, who don't work at the NSC anymore, who are still at the CIA, who are employed in think tanks around town. I think that almost every major liberal think tank in town would be on the list of the grand jury to get subpoenas for documents, records, and testimony. I'm a great believer that John Durham did not do his job and that his job has to be finished.
Joe, finally, we've also learned this morning, it's been a big morning for breaking stories, and we've learned that Ronna McDaniel will, in fact, be tendering her resignation this
Thank
week
God.
or the first week of March. Laura Trump, the daughter-in-law of the president, former president, was quoted over the weekend at CPAC saying that the RNC should, in fact, utilize some of their budget to help alleviate the president's legal costs. I'm torn about this because I do think that what the president is dealing with is unjust here. And it obviously is a political situation, but at the same time, the RNC's job needs to be to protect all the candidates who are running, not just the president and his legal costs. What can be done about this? Because part of the attack on Trump is a financial attack, a major financial attack.
Oh, well, I'm all for helping the president pay his bills and having the RNC do it. People who give to the RNC know what's going to be done with their money. Nobody's hiding this. They're talking about it out loud. So if you don't want to give to the RNC because you think it's going to be used for Trump's legal fees, don't give. And if you do want to give more. Give twice as much. This is ridiculous. This guy has been assaulted by the legal system in an unconstitutional attempt to deprive him from being on the ballot. Besides these crazy initiatives to take him off the ballot, they've tried to use Jack Smith and others to strip him of his civil rights. This isn't even a close call. You're damn right. And by the way, Ronna McDaniel's leaving is too late. There isn't enough time for the RNC to do anything to organize for this election except raise money. And by the way, Hunter Biden coming up this week, he's going to take the fifth. Everybody who's waiting for the big reveal, don't worry about it, folks. He's got criminal cases pending in California and Delaware. He's not going to testify. He's going to take the fifth. And if he doesn't take the fifth, then his lawyers should all be fired.
There's something clarifying sometimes talking to Joe diGenova. He just cuts right to it and sort of clears. I'm not torn anymore. See,
right,
exactly. You fixed it, Joe. Thank you, Joe. I love hearing that laugh. Give our best to your phenomenal
Bye,
wife.
Ronna. Say goodbye, Ronna.
Bye, Ronna.
105.9 WMAL.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:36. It's O'Connor and Company. Thank you for being part of what we're doing here, and thanks for letting us be a part of what you're doing there. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Julie, in 30 minutes, it's what I like to call Arm Day here on WMAL, O'Connor and Company.
Why is that?
Tom Fitton's going to join us. You know how you have your Arm Day at the gym?
Oh, yeah.
Every day is
He's
Arm Day
got
with
good
Tom.
arms.
He does. He's got
guns, I think is what they
guns. It's the right to bear arms.
That's right.
I say it because I'm jealous, obviously. Tom Fitton joining us in just 30 minutes. In the meantime, how much background do we need to give here? I think at this point everybody knows who Chaya Raichik is. She is the woman who runs Libs of TikTok. Now, this was a Twitter feed that basically she would see these crazy things that these liberals were doing on TikTok, videos that were putting out. She would then just repost them and say,
just post them.
That's it.
That's it. There was very little commentary.
Her identity was exposed. She was outed. Members of her family were intimidated. Her workplace was.
Yes, it's important. That's actually right. You're right to say that it was anonymous.
Right.
Which I think people forget because now she's out.
Now we know
open.
who she is. Her name is Chaya Raichik.
And she was essentially sort of doxxed.
By Taylor Lorenz.
That's right.
Taylor Lorenz, who is a so-called journalist. She focuses on high-tech social media issues. She was at the New York Times. She's now at the Washington Post. Until she outed Chaya Raichik and put her life and her family life and her profession in danger, her main claim to fame was to slip into the private direct messages of minors, teenagers, and try to coax them to say things about their parents and stuff, including Kellyanne Conway's child. So she's an odious individual.
She's an awful human being.
She also tries to get people canceled and tries to get them deplatformed and tries to get them, run out of business because they dare to have a different political
and just so
view
you know,
than
and when
does.
people push back on this, or if she gets raised, she cries.
Yeah,
Lorenz,
literally weeps. She had an appearance on.
She's this big victim.
She has this appearance on MSNBC where she broke down into tears and cried because people said mean things about her.
Yeah.
So Chaya Raichik shows up for this interview. They meet at a little cafe. I think it's in Florida. It looked like outdoor cafe. And Chaya Raichik, God, I love this woman.
I know.
She came with a T-shirt that had printed on it the photo of Taylor Lorenz in tears from that interview.
And let's just say, and look, I say this is an ugly crier. Taylor Lorenz is not a pretty crier. I mean, there are pretty criers and there are ugly criers. I happen to be an ugly crier. So does Taylor Lorenz. So this picture is just hideous of Taylor Lorenz.
So we've set it up for you, I think, pretty well. And by the way, this is also in the backdrop where this so-called non-binary girl who died in Oklahoma as a result of, well, we don't know what the result is. But she was in a fight in her bathroom of her school. It turns out that she instigated the fight. She got beat up. She went home. The next day she was in the hospital. There's video of the police interviewing her.
But the coroner has said it is not related to being hit or...
It doesn't appear to be related, but her death, tragic as it is being held up as this new iconic, these bullies killed this transgender girl. And they're specifically blaming Chaya Raichik because 3 years ago she outed one of the assistant principals or teachers at this same school as being odious and obnoxious. So they're literally saying that Chaya Raichik of Libs of TikTok is responsible for the death of this girl. It's horrific. It's horrible. All right. So now we've set it up. The two of them now have their interview.
Can I just give imagery? Taylor Lorenz is in a full, this is 2024. Taylor Lorenz is in a full, I think it's an
K95 or N95 mask.
Okay, so she's got duck face
they're
going on.
Outdoors.
They're outdoors.
At a restaurant. And she's got the full mask on and the crazy eyes.
I'm curious, I feel like there's been, especially on, my colleagues have done great reporting on sort of this rift on Twitter. I know that you have a very conservative fan base, and in your comments sometimes you'll see a lot of commentary about sort of the great replacement theory. What are your thoughts on that?
What are your thoughts on the comments on your post telling me to kill myself?
Horrible. Yeah, horrible. Obviously against that. Yeah.
So will you come out and condemn that publicly?
Oh, I would condemn it anytime. I'm against murdering anyone, of course.
So you're against death threats against me?
I'm a big, as somebody that's dealt with a lot of online harassment, I don't defend threatening to murder anyone. But I guess I'm curious,
because a lot of times it comes after an attack in the media, like someone like you or another journalist.
So are you saying that if somebody posts something and then attacks follow, that person should answer for those attacks?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying that people like you tell me that all the time, so I'm just asking if you think the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think I have said that here, but...
The whole premise of her question was that.
Right.
Right?
Right.
All right, but there's more.
I think it's kind of interesting, I guess, in the conservative movement, there's this ideology around sort of white nationalism.
What?
Which is obviously kind of a hardline ideology that's generally been pretty critical of Jewish communities. And I'm wondering, as a Jewish woman, how do you feel about sort of aligning yourself with those people and accounts? You see this sort of rhetoric in your replies. And I only bring it up, I'm not saying that you necessarily endorse that rhetoric. I would imagine that you don't. But how do you kind of think about those nuances when you're thinking about kind of the audience that you're building?
Some of your audience says we should chop off kids' body parts. What do you think about that?
This was a masterclass. Every single question, she just stopped for a moment, flipped it back on her, and challenged her and rejected the premise of it. And then we've discussed there's kind of a joke. It's an online meme about Taylor Lorenz because she pretends to be 20 years old.
Yes.
Right. You could hear her voice there. You could hear
she's got the vocal fry. She says the all the time. Like.
And that's how she ingratiates herself with these teenagers on TikTok or on, Snapchat or wherever they are. And it's become a joke that she's actually a 70-year-old woman. That she's very old, but she pretends to be a teenager. So, but her age is a mystery.
It is a mystery. But again, she is, there's no doubt, she's not young. She's not a super young 20, 30-year-old woman.
And again, I
think she's in her 40s.
Inappropriate to talk about a woman's age, certainly. But my understanding is she's either in her late 40s or early 50s.
Yeah.
But and that may be why she wears the mask all the time,
I think she's Gen X. She's my generation.
Yeah. So Chaya Raichik raised it with her.
How old are you?
Oh God, good question. I don't put it out on the internet.
Oh, on purpose?
Yeah.
Why?
Because people have done a lot of crazy to my family, and I don't put out my age, my birthday. Look at you know how it is. I don't want.
I mean, I've said many times I'm 29.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to put my birthday out there because I don't put my. I just.
Well, you don't have to put your birthday, just your age.
Yeah, I don't put it out there.
Why? How does it affect your family?
Well, it's my birthday. I don't want my birthday out there.
My birthday's not out there either.
It's not. Yeah,
No.
I guess mine is, and I don't want it. I don't want to confirm it. But it's not a. I mean, you can find. It's not hard to find my age if you Google. So it's not like a secret or anything.
Well, I did Google. It's 78 years old. That's why she wears a mask. She has a comorbidity. You know, if she catches COVID, it does affect the elderly. But I do love the fact that, well, you know, because people have gone after my family. Taylor Lorenz literally went after this young woman's family.
Tried to find her address. Yep, her business.
Knocked on their doors and demanded they come to the door and confirm Chaya Raichik's identity. This was just beautiful and so well done. And Chaya is so poised and everything. And good for her.
The funny thing is that Taylor Lorenz late last night actually put out the entire video and said she can chop it all she wants, but if you watch the whole video, clearly that she was a disaster. And then you watch the whole video and Chaya comes across as
We have critter news of an international variety here, Julie Gunlock, and I know how much you like critter news, especially when it involves insects, bugs, snakes, bats, other things that might bite you or that you might be compelled to eat after the apocalypse, right? But this is a warm and fuzzy, cuddly, snuggly one that makes everybody go, ah, because apparently the National Zoo, the Smithsonian Zoo, is now in talks with our friends, the commies, about getting a panda back.
Okay, they're kind of boring. Just keep the pandas. They keep like going back and forth.
All right. Are you criticizing the pandas? Because
we
I feel
have
like
red pandas, and they are a lot cuter.
All right. So I want to. I just feel like I need to warn
back
you.
up.
Well, no, just because, I mean, Bill Hess.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Of the Evil Empire.
You're not supposed to criticize the pandas.
You do not criticize the pandas. He has a soft spot for the panda. I would literally go into his office and he will have the panda cam up on his screen. while he's looking over my, expense records or something, or the ratings. O'Connor, you're on a short thread here.
Well, I was
I need you to say, I've been here a while. I've got some seniority.
Yeah.
You can't afford to criticize
but I wasn't
the pandas.
really criticizing the pandas. I guess I kind of was.
Yeah.
I guess I kind of was. But I just wish they'd decide already. I mean, they come, they go,
Stop
they
with
come,
the,
they
stop
go.
with the flying it back. How much does it cost to fly a panda around the world, right? It's just let the panda stay here. Yeah, we'll see. Fox 5 asked an expert about this, and we got the skinny.
China may send new pandas to the U.S.
I would say the chance is pretty good, 50-50%.
So now that we've got a new piece of the panda puzzle, we once again asked Soon about D.C.'s chances, and believe it or not, she said it could come down to Biden or Trump, whether or not...
All right, stop. I can't.
Are you kidding?
You want the pandas? Vote for our candidate of choice.
You know who they want.
Of course we know who they want. They've already paid for him.
Right.
Oh, man. This is exactly why I don't want the pandas.
Everything gets ruined.
Could we get Gordon Chang in here? I'll bet you any money he knows exactly what's up with these pandas. This is an experiment.
We always have the
of
red
sorts.
pandas.
We do. And by the way, I hope we get the pandas, by the way, because I adore them. In fact, it's the only reason not only to go to the zoo, but the only reason to spend any time in Washington, D.C. is to be able to experience the incredible giant pandas at the Smithsonian Zoo. And it has been a dark, dark time here in our nation's capital since they've left us.
Has anybody checked on Bill lately?
He's right at the door.